Live with Dr. Coffee. Today is Saturday, January 12th, and I'm glad to be back here with you guys. And my topic today, I changed my heart. I was planning to continue in the neuroscience area of disorders related with the health benefits of coffee, which would be talking about Alzheimer's disease. But I was reading, actually rereading a chapter that I wrote, and I'm going to explain you in a minute what it is. And I found that would be very interesting to talk about this today. And the topic is coffee consumption and children, which is very controversial in some countries, starting here with the United States, which is the biggest consumer of coffee in the world, but where the kids are still not allowed to drink coffee because there is this myth that coffee is not good for children. And that's what I want to talk about today. And so how this thing all started. I was writing papers, and I was approached by a couple of very prestigious physicians, both that were sometime working at Duke University and also North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and as you know, all Ivy League universities. And I was approached by them to write a chapter in a book about translational toxicology. So that sounds very complex, but I'm going to try to break it down in small words. Translational stands for exactly how it seems like is something that is translated into something else. So in this case, toxicology. So they were interested for me to write about potential hazards or good, whatever I found in my research about the effects of coffee in the fetus, in the pregnant women, and also in the child neonates, infancy, all the way to adolescence. And I was really happy to get that request because it's something that I always talk here and people doesn't seem to really understand, or they're still afraid to get their kids drinking coffee. And I believe with all this new era, with so many coffee shops around and all the kids going to Starbucks and all kinds of different places to have their coffee, that might have been some sort of a concern about the parents and relatives or their kids having coffee in early age. Okay, so this book, Translational Toxicology, was published in 2016, and I have a chapter that covers this big area, which goes from fetus all the way to adolescence. And while I was gathering the material for this book, I started thinking how many myths were set in relation to coffee drinking and potential abnormalities during the generation of the kids, during the fetus development. And also after that, like potential influences that if the mother was drinking coffee during pregnancy, that could lead the child when was born to be born with congenital malformations, with child defects like neural tube defects, like oral cleft palate defects, let me see, I have a list of them here, cardiovascular malformations, spontaneous abortion, small gestational age and preterm birth, meaning that they thought that if the mother drank coffee during gestation, the kid would be born earlier and with a smaller weight, and consequently not prepare for normal development. Also, there was some concerns about potential development of diabetes mellitus in the pregnant woman. Also, there were concerns about potential development of childhood acute leukemia and so forth. So I found myself gathering this tons of papers about everything that I could find, studies on all those topics, and looking to animal studies and also studies in humans. And guess what? My conclusion in the end of the chapter, and let me show you here, this is the book that I'm telling you, is Translational Toxicology. And the two editors are Claude Hughes and Michael Waters. And they try to cover many aspects of potential influences that the fetus could have, and also during child development, things related with the everyday lifestyle that could be blamed for some future problems. So I was asked to write about coffee. And one thing that I immediately started seeing was that when I found controversies in the results, for example, there were some mothers that were drinking coffee, but they were also smoking. And then later, there were papers showing that the effect seen in the fetus and the potential neonates was not due to coffee, but actually to the smoking habit. So many controversies, like I said, was, from my point of view, those papers were not conclusive because, first of all, there were many other factors that were not weighed in the conclusion, like this one, for instance. And also, many times, the frequency of a coffee drinker and the amount of caffeine in those cups of coffee, they were not quantitated. So the papers doesn't say how much of caffeine in those coffee that were being, the people that were being studied in those trials. So this also brings a little bit of a potential confusion in terms of a conclusion of if the coffee is beneficial or not. But what I can tell you is that, like I said, while gathering all this information, I could see that not only the conclusion we come is that there is no proof, evidence that drinking coffee regularly during pregnancy can lead to any malformations, all the list of things that I mentioned, and much more that was investigated and studied to write my conclusions. And you are welcome to look at this chapter in the book. Unfortunately, I cannot share because of copyrights involved, but is an edition from Humana Press, the book, and like I said, was published in 2016. But I have this great news for you, hey, because there are many studies that, especially the ones done in pregnant women, couldn't be done with all the necessary exams and having the necessary placebos and things like that because of the status, pregnancy status of the woman. What the gynecologists association, American Association of Gynecology and obstetricians, what they say is that women that are pregnant should be moderate in their coffee consumption, but it's not said that it's not allowed. If at some point that was said, that is what's not true anymore. Just need moderation. And moderation meaning 1 to 2 cups a day. That will be considering that each cup has in between 50 to 150 milligrams of caffeine. And like I said, I'm very happy to come here and tell you that you don't have to worry if your kids are drinking coffee. And the children in early age, we have a couple of good examples. And I come originally from Brazil, and in my country, all the kids in the school, in the public system, they have in the morning a small breakfast. And it was standardized that this breakfast is part of it is exactly to drink 1 cup of milk with coffee. Why? Because there is an extensive research done in Brazil with kids in the early age, like, elementary school and middle school. And those kids that drinks milk with coffee, they have shown to have a much better alertness in the morning. They get a much better grasp on the material that has been given, meaning that the memorization is much better. They absorb much better the material, and they retain also better. So that's why now is a standard in all Brazil, in all public system, to have milk with coffee. So that's my message for all the moms that are concerned about their kids drinking coffee. Just let them have coffee, and if they mix with milk, is a double win, because milk has all the good properties plus the properties of coffee. And so that's the message I want to send today to you guys. And I hope that was something that will be able to be spread the word. And I know it's a sort of a culture, and habits is not something that you start from one day to the other. But, if your kid feel like drinking coffee, let him or she drink coffee. There's no problem for them. And of course, has to be in moderation, just like I say for us as adults. So we should be drinking that in moderation, and mainly during the morning and early afternoon, to avoid any alertness at night when you want to be sound sleep. So that is for today. And hope to see you next week. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. See you next week.